AITA for making my husband find his own way to get himself to a medical procedure. My husband, 37M, has a vasectomy scheduled for next Friday. He went in for a consultation about 2 months ago, and this was the earliest they could schedule the actual procedure on a Friday. He did not talk to me about scheduling this or whether or not it conflicted with anything already on our schedule. He said he just picked the first available appointment on a Friday because he wants the weekend to recover without having to take extra days off work. Well, turns out that it does conflict with my schedule. I have a huge workshop for my job next Friday. It's an all-day event and my boss 100% expects me to be there. My husband was under the assumption that I would take off work to bring him to the procedure and take him home. But I've had to explain to him that I can't miss this workshop and he's going to have to find his own way there. The doctor told him that they recommend having someone else drive you because some people pass out from the procedure. So I suggested that he take an Uber there and back, since the office is only 5 miles or so from our house. But he said, and I quote, "The last thing I want to do after having my sac cut open is to get in a car with a complete stranger, no matter how close to home it is." He said the doctor told him the whole procedure will only take 1,015 minutes and that I could at least ask if I can get out of the workshop for an hour or so to take him there and back. But with where the workshop is being held, I would be gone for at least 2 hours. And my husband's appointment is at 2:30 p.m., so I would miss pretty much the entire afternoon session. I don't want to do that. I think that my husband is being unreasonable and he is fully capable of either driving himself or taking an Uber. He asked me about it again last night and I told him to stop asking because I am not going to do it. And he's going to need to figure it out on his own. I told him it's his fault he scheduled this without talking to me first and that if he wants me to drive him there he's going to need to reschedule. He said he has already waited 2 months and he just wants this done. We don't have any family nearby to drive him either. And he said he doesn't feel comfortable asking a friend to take him there either because it's such a personal procedure. I told him he's just going to have to suck it up and figure it out on his own because he created this situation by not talking to me about it first. He's barely talking to me now and he said he feels like I'm putting my job above him in our relationship. I told him that ridiculous because it's not like this is life or death. He'll be in and out in 20 minutes and then spend the whole weekend sitting on a couch watching football and playing video games while I do everything around the house. He'll be fine, but he still thinks I'm being an awe because I won't take off work to drive him there and back. Info. Why did you leave out the fact that he did tell you the date and time of the procedure when he first booked it? You just neglected to make note of it or check any conflicts. That's pretty important. Info. Well, turns out that it does conflict with my schedule. / mine. Did you know that his scheduled appointment conflicted with your work schedule when he first told you? As in, you didn't tell him the day he made the appointment that you had a work conflict until it was closer to the day in question. YTA. I didn't even notice there was a conflict until 23 weeks later. He just shot me a text with a time and date that he scheduled it for because he tried to call but I was busy and I didn't answer. I forgot about the text and didn't even think about it until he brought it up a couple weeks later. This needs to be added to the post because he did, in fact, try to tell you about the scheduling. He did communicate with you. You just forgot about it until you realized, weeks later, that the date wouldn't work for you. Yes, he can attempt to reschedule, but you trying to put the blame squarely on him for not communicating when he did, makes you the off. Please edit your post to include the info you put in a comment. The way you wrote your post makes it sound like you had no idea about the appointment. Your comment stated that you knew almost a month prior to the appointment and that he did try and communicate it with you. You had ample time to let him know you had a work engagement. Textbook for not communicating openly. Very close to YTA for a largely misleading post. Edit to change judgment to full YTA. You're not obligated to be at the workshop. You're just interested in it. You're pushing your husband to even get this procedure done, then leaving him hanging once he does get one scheduled. He informed you of the date and time of the procedure, and you ignored him, forgot, and didn't communicate about the conflict that he wasn't even aware of. This year he moved with you to a new place for your career. This job which is now taking his place as your primary priority. YTA. You conveniently left out information from your post that was luckily revealed in comments that shows you know this is an asshole move, and just want to be told you're alright for ignoring the needs of your spouse. Why did you even push for him to get a vasectomy in the first place? And why was he on the fence about it until recently? Seems like there are much bigger issues going on here. You two might need counseling or at least some intentional date nights together to figure your relationship out. You need to treat your husband with more respect and love. At first, I was going to say NTA because your husband is not a child and needs to figure it out on his own. If he does not bother checking his schedule with you. However, after seeing some of your comments that he did in fact check with you, and it was actually your lack of communication skills that is at fault here. I am going to change to a double YTA. One for your lack of communication to your husband and trying to blame him, and one for conveniently leaving this crucial part of information out of your story. Edit. Typo. Because of these comments from Op, he told me the same day, right after he scheduled it. I didn't even notice there was a conflict until 23 weeks later. He just shot me a text with a time and date that he scheduled it for because he tried to call but I was busy and I didn't answer. I forgot about the text and didn't even think about it until he brought it up a couple weeks later. YTA, he did notify you of the date. You just didn't bother to say anything about it, leaving him to think everything was fine. He's probably under the impression that the date worked with your schedule because you didn't. Object and now believes you're pulling out of an agreement weeks later instead of just initially rejecting it. Edit. She's also the one that pushed him to get the procedure. Possibly because she didn't want to get sterilized herself, which is a more serious surgery for women. Relevant comments. I've been pushing for him to get it actually. But even his consultation had to be booked 6 weeks in advance. And then another 2 months for the actual procedure. I never said there can't be issues. But it's not nearly as serious a procedure as being put under anesthesia and having your abdomen sliced open. YTA, edit your post with the fact he told you the day he scheduled the appointment and you forgot for weeks to check your schedule. YTA, because in your comments you state you have been pushing him to have this procedure too. He did try to call and you did not answer, so he texted you the date and time. You failed to realize there was a conflict till weeks later, when you state this workshop has been on the books for 6 months. 3. Telling him he can drive himself home after a medical procedure. YTA for misrepresenting this whole post, TBH. I mean, in your comments you say he called the day he scheduled, then texted you the data, time when you didn't answer. Then you didn't pay attention to the date you till 2 weeks before and said you couldn't make it. Then you are going to say he didn't talk to you about it and bury the info in the comments? Lol. Please review. Op confirms husband told her about the appointment right after it was scheduled. Op confirms not answering the phone and ignoring text containing information. Op confirms knowing about the company event 6 months in advance. Op confirms husband was not made aware of event. YTA. He tried. You put in no effort to meet him halfway. And I genuinely do not think you like your husband. I think you left some vital info out of your post when I read only this. I thought NTA. But after reading some of your comments, I'm teetering between ESH and YTA. You are the one that's been pushing for him to get this done. If I read correctly, he tried calling when scheduling and you didn't answer. So he booked the APPT and sent you the date in a TXT, which you didn't look at, and then forgot about. After typing this out, I've decided that YTA. He's doing what you wanted. He told you when it was and you didn't say anything. He's been preparing himself for this. And now he's forced to either Uber or reschedule. Neither of which is a huge deal. But I can totally understand being upset about it. Well, I don't think he scheduled this to piss you off. And I can see that work-wise. This date doesn't work for you either. He can either reschedule it or get an Uber or a taxi. I am sure the front desk would be happy to help. Back in the day before Ubers, we would just call a taxi for those in need of a ride from the doctor's office. I didn't even notice there was a conflict until 23 weeks later. He just shot me a text with a time and date that he scheduled it for because he tried to call but I was busy and I didn't answer. I forgot about the text and didn't even think about it until he brought it up a couple weeks later. You really need to add this to the op because A. Your husband tried to call you, and you didn't answer, and B. Sent you a text with the date and time which you disregarded. Also in your comments you said that you were pushing for him to get the procedure and that you're not putting on the workshop. You're just attending. YTA. Your husband did what he was supposed to and you need to do your part and get him to and from his medical appointment. He told me the same day, right after he scheduled it. And I didn't even notice there was a conflict until 23 weeks later. He just shot me a text with a time and date that he scheduled it for because he tried to call but I was busy and I didn't answer. I forgot about the text and didn't even think about it until he brought it up a couple weeks later. YTA. Way to leave off critical info. He did not talk to me about scheduling this or whether or not it conflicted with anything already on our schedule. Well, turns out, he did. I didn't even notice there was a conflict until 23 weeks later. He just shot me a text with a time and date that he scheduled it for because he tried to call but I was busy and I didn't answer. I forgot about the text and didn't even think about it until he brought it up a couple weeks later. For this YTA. YTA. 1. For lying about your husband trying to schedule around your work. In your comments you mention he did call and text you while he was scheduling this, which you didn't respond to, then never followed up until he reminded you weeks later. You intentionally left our information in your post to keep from being judged. 2. For shifting blame and not taking responsibility. You told your husband, it's not your fault he scheduled it without you. Well, he did try to, but was ignored by you, then forgotten about when he could have easily rescheduled. You need to take responsibility for your part in causing this conflict. 3. For dismissing your husband's concerns. Especially because you pushed him to get this. He's getting a surgery that may have a major impact on his life. While it might be a minor surgery with low risk of complications, it can still be a stressful event. 4. He doesn't have many people around to support him because you said this yourself. He moved with you for your new job. It sounds like your husband took a sacrifice to support your job. But you're not willing to make sacrifices for your husband, considering you couldn't be bothered to answer a call or respond to a text at work. But you could look at them. while you knew he was at a consultation that you pushed him to have. It sounds like your husband's argument of you putting your job above him is true. 5. Misleading the importance of this meeting. You're attending, not leading it. Your boss expects you there, but you're not required to be there. You said yourself you could miss this and face no consequences. But you don't want to. At this point, you are 100% putting your career above your husband. Take a step back and look at your actions and words. If you don't value your relationship more than your career, stop lying to your husband about it and stringing him along. If anyone's curious about my judgment, check OP's comment history and don't make a judgment based only they've put in their post. You're the and you know it. That is exactly why you have left out the key details in the post. 1. Your husband called you before scheduling and you didn't receive the call. So he texted you the date and time. You forgot about the text. 2. You were informed of the workshop 6 months prior and you were informed of the surgery 2 months prior. You did not check your schedule to see if the dates were conflicting. 3. Your complete lack of empathy for your husband is just wow. Yes, it may be a minor surgery, but some people need emotional and physical support even for minor things. I know of ladies that drove to the hospitals for delivery and then back home after the delivery. But that doesn't mean every lady can do that. YTA. Info. When did he tell you the date of the APPT? And when did you tell him you can't do that date, time? NTA. If he wanted you to drive him, he should have consulted with you when making the appointment. Not just make an appointment assuming you would be able to take off work. If he won't take an Uber, he needs to ask one of his friends or reschedule the appointment for a day that works for you too. Edit. YTA and YTA for the misleading way you worded your post.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.